Okay, so we are live.
Okay. I just saw Lindsay and I appear and disappear. So we'll go ahead and start, and then you can start with roll call, and if another commissioner jumps in, Brian, we'll take it from there as well.
Okay, Commissioner Myers,
Present.
Chair Lorman,
Isn't.
Commissioner Randall, Commissioner Randall, can I just have you say present?
Present.
Thank you. Uh, Commissioner Schwartz
Present.
and Commissioner Nye. I think Commissioner Nye is having a little bit of audio issue, but she is present at the meeting.
Great. Okay. She's working on it. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Lindsay? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
You can say present. Thank you.
Present. Yes.
All righty. Proof of posting. Do we have that posted at the city and at the airport?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Rich. And we'll start out. Brian, do you have any? We don't have any announcements, so we'll move to public comment. And starting out with public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. We ask that you state your name and your address. And I'll make sure I have a stopwatch up here. And if anybody would like to speak, you can raise your virtual hand to Brian. If that doesn't work, just take yourself off mute and identify yourself. Okay, Brian, I guess we'll take that as a negative. You don't have anything peeking in on your end?
Nope, no virtual hands up. The only one to add for the record for the minutes is we did receive an email this afternoon from Jay McCormick and an N. Anderson on Ellington Way with some concerns raised regarding flight patterns. So that was emailed to all commission members and just noting that for the minutes.
Okay. And we will be addressing that in our discussion and action items. So thank you very much. I've reviewed the minutes. I don't have any comments. Do any of the other commissioners have any comments regarding review of the minutes? Charles, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is misspelled in item 2
Oopsie.
and in item 5.
It's Myers. Thank you, Charles.
That's correct. So I asked that the spelling of my name be corrected.
Right. Brian, you'll take care of that. And will you actually send a copy out then to the commission after the corrections? Is that how that works?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll accept the minutes as submitted with the corrections noted by Charles Myers. Chair report. I have some UL stuff. We'll deal with that in the unleaded section. I did attend EAA, and I made some rounds to some of our vendors and sponsors of general aviation. I went over to the AOPA, spoke to the liaison for our region, Kyle Lewis, and I just really wanted to get a sense from them where the FAA is at right now. And I went over to the BOA, asked pretty much the same question of each one of them. What are you basically seeing and experiencing when submitting projects to the FAA, getting them through the pipeline and through the system? And they said, unfortunately, there's not a lot happening right now. So airports all over, I guess the Wisconsin and the country are not seeing much action going on their projects. So as you all know, that impacts us. We have a couple things sitting right now with the FAA, and if Brian wants to add comments to that.
His comments are pretty spot on. Lead time for the FAA is long due to staffing. We don't have a good timeline on when our ALP is going to be finalized. It's been in review with them for a while, and we ask on a regular basis for updates, and we're still waiting to hear a response from them on that.
Yeah. And that's really about all I had to report. So we can move on to the manager report.
Okay, can everyone hear me all right?
Sounds good, Rich.
Okay, new technology today. Okay, I'm going to put two of these, or the last 2 months in one, as you probably seen it in front of you. So from May 28th, 2025 to June 28th, 2025, we're talking about the first month. 5 individuals made 12 noise or low flying aircraft reports in June, and 6 individuals made 11 noise or overflight reports in July. 1 individual made 10 of the 23 reports over the 2-month period. All of those who wished to receive a callback were contacted. To the best of my, listening to this, no violations of FAA regs were apparent in any of the reports. The aircraft reported appeared to be following the voluntary noise abatement procedures and were at pattern altitude during the overflight. I'd like to add one other thing, or following the instrument approach procedure. That's something I overlooked. No accidents or incidents on the field with aircraft or anything else that I'm aware of. The mowing season continues. We're a little bit, this week without any rain has allowed us to catch up. It's also allowed Larry, the farmer, Larry Wagner, to get some of his marsh hay in as well. Okay, we had a real busy couple of months. The Middleton Garden Club met 3 times in that time period. The Women in Aviation meeting and safety seminar was on June 3rd. One of our instructors presented there. It was very nice. Christy did a nice job. Wings to Fly Kids Flying event, June 21st. The VMC Club, again, another safety seminar, visual meteorological conditions, VMC, June 12th and July 10. Camp Willa, getting kids that normally don't get out. You don't see these kids at the airport. Out July 9 to 11 was our portion of it. We got quite a few of them. Well, we got a lot of people up in the air. And July 14th, another Willa Brown Kids to Fly event occurred. Okay, events held in the Maury Maintenance Hangar as opposed to the Maury Conference Room. July 1st, Capri and the Dream Flights, a 100-year-old Marine veteran is given a flight in a Stearman biplane, a World War II trainer. There was some nice publicity about that. It's amazing. They have it to a fine science to get mobilely impaired people into this biplane. And 2 other veterans were given rides as well. Let's see, July 13, of course, the EAA Chapter 93 breakfast. Over 1,200 meals were served. I think they did just an outstanding job, and the pancakes were pretty tasty. Future events, just this weekend, Capital Flight has the Aviation Auto Car Show starting at 10, going through 2 right here on the southeast section of the field. August 19th, another Dream Flights for Veterans will be hosted. It's a little more comfortable to do this in our maintenance hangar. We discovered that last time versus put them out in the tent. So we go with that. And then to be held in the Maury Conference Room, August 14th, another VMC Club. 21, Wings to Fly event, another one. August 25, the Garden Club will be there. 27, we'll be running a safety seminar. And on June 30, very special event for us. My father took his great-granddaughter and his granddaughter and his daughter for an airplane ride. So, and again, 2025 marks the 100th anniversary of the Howard Maury starting flight school in the Madison area. And we are going to be having an event coming up this fall. More to follow on that. Any questions?
Charles.
Hi, Rich. Just for people who are unfamiliar with an instrument landing system and why someone might be using it and what safety benefits it has, could you please explain why its path is what it is and how it's beneficial for pilots?
All right. We have 4 instrument landing systems or approaches, instrument approaches into this airport. These are typically used often for training, but their real purpose is to be used when the weather is low. Visibilities are below 3 miles, ceilings below 1,000 foot. With the GPS systems, you come straight in on an approach and you descend either by a vertical guidance. If the aircraft is equipped with such, they will give you what altitude you're supposed to be at simply by following the instruments, or step downs where you would go to a certain waypoint and then you're allowed to descend down to an altitude. So when I mentioned that instrument approach procedure, the FAA has essentially accredited these, and they check them on a yearly basis, usually a couple times a year, do the flight checks. They will put an aircraft approximately 500 feet above a hill to our directly west and slightly north that's in alignment with the runway. That hill is approximately 2 miles out, maybe a little bit less than that. And in any event, that's why I mentioned that if aircraft use the instrument approach system and follow it right down to altitude, they would be below pattern altitude, that is the ultimate 1,000 feet above ground level. What you will see is with the higher performance aircraft, the jets, the turboprops, and even people that are unfamiliar with this airport and area, they will load, even on a good visual day, they'll load up the instrument approach procedure and they will fly it because it is guaranteed to give them guidance, both laterally, side to side, and vertically. And it's guaranteed to keep them away from obstacles. It's very common to do that at night. I think almost every jet that comes into here, and most of the turboprops load the approaches rather than just doing a visual. So that's why you're going to see them. They enhance safety, and they're really to make this airport useful, you have to have those instrument approaches.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that essential safety feature and why a pilot might choose to use it.
You're very welcome.
David Schwartz.
Sure. I'd just like to add to what Rich said to help Charles out that these procedures have been here for a long, long time. So again, it's nothing new that's being added to the airport. It's something that's been here for a very long time.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it, but I will confess I do know what an ILS is and what it's used for, but not everyone watching might. And so my question was for the benefit of people who might be unfamiliar.
Yeah. And to clarify, the 2 GPS approaches were activated. We were given those, or they became active shortly after 2004 with the new alignment of the runway. So it's been over 20 years of operation. Okay.
All right.
Rich, I just have a small thing on the future events. I believe the next Wings to Fly is Saturday, August 16th.
That is one I missed. You are correct, Cara.
Okay.
Uh,
Just in case people want to come out and watch how cool that is.
Yeah, Wings to Fly. And I'll be participating in that as well as providing some flight.
Excellent.
As will I, weather permitting.
But of course,
But of course. Any commissioners have any other questions for Rich's report or asks or input for him on future reports? Charles.
Hi, Rich. Just one thing that it might be helpful to start including is the amount of time it takes you to respond to the various noise complaints that come in.
Mhm. Okay, I can add that. Typically speaking, it's an hour or two a month. Honestly, the phone calls go fairly quickly. It is not my job to try to explain well, I do explain, but it's not my job to justify what we're doing. I do refer them to the city's website that does a great job of it. But I essentially what I'm doing is interacting with the people in a positive manner, understanding their concerns, making sure that they know that those concerns have been recorded, will be reported, and offer the option of making public comments at these meetings.
Okay, and then of course it does take you time to investigate to make sure that the plane was following the abatement procedure, or was it the pattern altitude? So it just might be helpful to quantify
Okay. All right.
time.
I will spare. I do record those and put them into my the timesheets for the city that we report at the end of the year. So that's easy enough for me to do. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, I just thought of something else too that might be neat for the public to know about the Wings to Fly event and the Young Eagles. Like how many of our local pilots either volunteer their time, because it's all volunteer, not just your staff, but just pilots in the community volunteer, and just the donations like that. That it's something where there's a broader community that loves to support these kids getting up in the air.
Absolutely. And what I like to do, and we have done in the past, although the people that organize this tend to be both busy and somewhat modest, but I've tried to get, for instance, Susan Schwab to address the group to tell what's going on, get someone from the EA chapter to give a full report on the pancake breakfast. Things along those lines, I think, went over well, although, of course, we're preaching to the choir. One thing that I do want to start seeing is a little bit more presence in the news media. So I'm considering doing some ad buys on the published, both the Middleton Times Tribune and, of course, oh gosh, I can't even remember the other one now, but I should, because he's right there. George is right there. Sorry. But trying
Middleton Review.
Yeah, the review. Yeah, when you get older, it doesn't get easier. But yeah, I think it would be nice to just be a little more proactive and talk about all the things that are doing. Especially, we should be putting bits in when a high school student solos or gets their license. We should be putting a little congratulations in the paper about that. I think that might be an area where we need to step up and start doing it.
Yeah, I think that's great because we have the resources of the Middleton Review and Middleton Times Tribune that are at least the paper online communication to the community about how much is really going on for youth and volunteerism in the community, educational opportunities, STEM, that kind of stuff. So I really am totally supporting and obviously reporters coming out and finding out what kind of activities, as well as I appreciate you considering ad buys. I just think there's a void there. People don't really know like how useful this is on a community surface, an educational basis.
Yeah, I've approached our leadership at the local EAA chapter and have talked to Susan with the Wings to Fly. They seem to take a very modest approach to wanting to step into the political side of this arena. And I've expressed my desire to them to really do this because, the impactfulness of it. The local Middleton Times, for example, I'll see in there, they highlight what the Kiwanis do and things like that. But how many service organizations do you really think annually are committing the amount of money that's going on out at the airport in terms of what Young Eagles have done with their scholarships and what all the local volunteer pilots have done, providing their time and aircraft for the kids' STEM events and the Camp Willa. I think I said this at the last meeting, at an average of $150 an hour just to operate an aircraft, and for a pilot to be there and doing that, we already know it's in the tens of thousands of dollars a year. And how many other local service organizations are contributing that money directly to the community for youth education? If people want future engineers and to take on these more technically challenging jobs, then these kids have to get very young exposure to technical fields like aviation. So, thank you for bringing that up, counselors, and thank you for keeping us on track. And don't stop doing it. And again, thank you, Rich, for your ongoing willingness to basically clear out your maintenance hangar and make it available for these events. That's dismantling your service operation, moving all the aircraft out. And also, I would imagine your staff is not working back there during that time. So,
Well, we're working, we're cleaning floors and doing moving things around.
yes,
I know
you're not fixing airplanes.
Not producing revenue per se, but it's
right. You're not doing that.
No, we need to
Thank you.
Give back to the community, give back to the aviation as well. Anyway, thank you.
And thank you for doing that. And as I see that you just did with a young A&P out there who has an undergraduate degree in engineering. He's a certified airframe and power system
Mechanic.
Mm-hmm. And he's pursuing CFI as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that means he already has an instrument rating. So this young person has put in 4 years of undergraduate education, another 2 years of FAA A&P certification education, plus the amount of years it took to get a private pilot and CFI rating, and to pursue a CFI rating. So this person is spending the kind of money that a student spends getting up to medical school, and will be spending the next level for commercial certification. So thank you. Okay. Any other comments for Rich in the manager's report? All right, we'll move on. Starting our discussion and action items, review, discussion, and potential action on crosswind operations, noise abatement, and related information. And Brian, do you want to put that up on the screen so the public can see it?
Is that the image you're looking for?
Yep. So basically what this is real aircraft data captured by an my ADS-B device in a typical training aircraft flying typical pattern activity at the airport. So this is not simulation or rendering of sorts. Rich, you can be critical of my pattern positioning, but nonetheless, it is it's real data that you see. And wanted to bring this up because the residents on Ellington Way have communicated with Brian and Rich on a couple occasions now, and as recently as today. They stated in their communication to Brian, a couple of things that are of concern that I think really deserve clarification. And one is they stated that pilots are harassing them, or flight patterns are intentional in the sense of harassment, and so on and so forth. And I think what's important to point out is just the real world scenario of where airplanes fly, how high they fly, and where they fly. And also state, and Rich, just keep me honest here, any harassment that a pilot would take place in an airplane, in a pattern, at an airport would be pretty much immediate action for FAA involvement in a serious way. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So what you see in front of you is our standard pattern. And what I wanted to point out was it's pretty typical to be flying over the western neighborhoods of the airport. And if you go to the next page, Brian, what you'll see there is some elevation references. And the airport is 926 feet, and that's where aircraft calibrate their instruments while they're on the ground, in the air and on the ground. So as they approach the vicinity of the airport, it's not an option, but it is a requirement of pilots to calibrate the instruments in their aircraft to the field elevation of the airport, which is 926 feet. So as they're flying in the vicinity of the airport, as Rich pointed out in his discussion earlier with Charles, is that as the airplanes fly in, the elevation around the airport can be higher in some areas. And as you can see, really as much as anywhere from 75 to almost 100 feet difference between where the runway is and where some of the topography around the airport is. And it would be also fair to say that this is normal in a lot of airports that simply have a varying geography around them. So I included from the city documentation on the next page, Brian, what our master plan and what the expectations are. And this talks about cumulative noise effects and the noise contours. And if you go to the next page, what you'll see is the noise contours pretty much align with real world scenarios. So this information that is in our master plan, we know is validated by professionals, but also I just wanted to illustrate how it really applies to constant and most recent flight activity at the airport, meaning the solid green and red lines are the straight in approaches, and the magenta or purple are aircraft in the pattern. And then to the next page, Brian, is the actual noise contours that you see. And so what you see is the outer line, which is about 55 decibels, and the inner, which is 60, and of course, right around field operation, where it is obviously higher in this 65 and 70 decibel area. And the next page, Brian, our noise abatement procedure, which has been in place since 2020. And lastly, but not leastly, this is, I believe, taken, right, this is from our city website. And this is, again, another illustration of where aircraft are instructed to fly, which is during departure, during the higher noise times away from the neighborhood. And I think the next page in our packet, is that it, Brian? After
Yep.
this, nothing else, right?
Yep, that's the last attachment for this item.
So that's what I wanted to point out and provide to our neighbors. And I guess what I'm saying is this is not a denial of aircraft flying over the western part of the airport, but this is an acknowledgement that this will take place, and the city really can't control it as a municipality, what the aircraft do, because they're flying in an authorized way within federally regulated airspace. And I think with that, I'll leave my introductory statement and let the commissioners weigh in.
David, may I make just one
Absolutely.
an observation?
Mhm.
What we're having right now and have had in the last year or so is the flight schools are busier. There's maintenance being done at the Madison Airport, Dane County, so a lot of their traffic is coming over here. So ideally, we would turn our base leg, and when we're landing on 1-0, for instance, the base leg would be inside of that hill. What we're seeing is especially with the Dane County pilots, they're used to a much wider pattern, so they may do their base leg even outside of the hill, over 2 miles out by the power lines, and then on final they're going to be in alignment with the runway and essentially on that same IFR type approach or profile. So even now we're seeing more overflights of that hill, and so even though the noise abatement procedure is thus, there will be times when if there is someone in the pattern flying that pattern, everyone else has to fly pretty much that pattern. Otherwise, you're cutting them off in the pattern. I have spoken with the airport, or excuse me, their flight school manager over there. They're trying to get the word out, but that is perhaps one of the reasons why we're seeing some more airplanes over, and that at slightly lower altitudes, because they'd be on final going straight in and over that hill area. So that is something that does occur. It is consistent with the pattern. As the pattern gets, if there are more aircraft in the pattern, it has to expand. But it is in maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when the level of activity was a bit lower, certainly during COVID, the pattern was tighter because we didn't have as many people in the pattern. I just want to, and I will
thank you.
I will absolutely reiterate, there is no harassment going on. If anything, we're trying to bend over backwards to avoid because, I mean, what possible good could come of that? All we're going to do is create. There's no intent to create more noise complaints. Let's put it that way, and that would be what harassment would be, and we're not doing it.
Yeah, and I think what benefit would there be to the pilot after really dedicating years of their life to flight certification to give all that up? I see Charles has a comment, but I want to just jump in here. I see that our Commissioner Ryan Wubin has joined by name. I don't see his camera on, and I will say, Ryan, if you want to be counted as attending this meeting, just turn your camera on.
Hey,
All right.
I'm here. I'm in a
Oh,
field though.
oh, you're
So that's
working.
what, Yeah, I'm
Okay.
working. So my
Okay,
camera's
that's
off mainly because for Wi-Fi bandwidth here. So
okay.
we're
Well,
in
that's
cross
fine.
we're at Glacier Creek in Cross Plains for the Cross Plains National Night Out. We've been doing that all week.
Okay,
So
understood.
sorry about that. But
Yeah,
I am here.
okay. You if you we'll let you attend as um in spirit then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles.
Yeah, I just wanted to give Rich or any of the others with experience in this an opportunity to explain uh, what precisely the FAA classifies as pilot harassment and how seriously the FAA takes those complaints when they are in fact substantiated. Just for people who may be unfamiliar with the sorts of behaviors that the FAA classifies as harassment by a pilot.
Is there and I defer to Rich on this, but is there a definition for harassment? I guess this is new to me.
I am not aware of a specific, I don't know, guideline for harassment. They have plenty of regulations. And the regulations, I mean, if we're talking about harassment, my guess would be intentional, low altitude, high noise, uh, it's been overflights. Now, you will look at the regulations, 1,000 feet in congested areas, 500 feet altitude above in non-congested areas, except when maneuvering for takeoff or landing. And our friends who complain about their altitude usually leave out that last part of the regulation. So if someone were to go out of their way to do a low overflight over something that's obviously not part of the pattern, yes, they could be that could be considered harassment and or certainly something the FAA would be interested in. But if it's part of a safe approach procedure and there's reasons for doing that, that's not considered harassment.
I'd also add that in this era of ADSB, we're all visible in ways that before 2020 we weren't. And with all of the apps out there, so it's like, your license plate, so to speak, is visible to everyone with the app. So there's a huge disincentive to do anything like that. So, I'll stop there.
Agreed.
David Schwartz and then Kara.
Sure. We're tossing around the word harassment, and I apologize if where I missed it, but where is the word harassment coming from? That most recent letter that we got that was sent out just hours ago, I don't see the word harassment in there. I do see the word intentional in there. And I would even agree that if someone is flying the published procedures, that they're doing it intentionally. But in terms of that leading to someone accusing anyone of harassment, I don't see the word. It's a very volatile word, obviously, and I don't see that word in that letter. I don't know if this is coming from somewhere else. I just wanted to ask about that.
I'd let Brian comment on that. He received the letters.
Yes, in some of the previous correspondence, I believe that that term was utilized.
Okay. So then my other comment would be, I do note, I guess in terms of action that this commission might want to take, the letter from today indicates that they've contacted the airport commission, the city on many occasions historically, and are, I'll use the word disappointed that they haven't received any response. And this letter very pointedly asks for a written response. And so I just want to see if we want to follow through on that.
Well, Brian has responded. Has sent a very detailed email explaining the noise abatement procedure and telling them that, well, sorry, I won't take, you can, I'll let Brian talk to that, but we have responded to these two people in the past, but they aren't getting the results they want, which is airplanes not flying over their house.
Yeah, when I received these correspondence from this particular neighbor, I've asked them to log the event or contact Mr. Mori to register the complaint, and I've also directed them to provide this information to the airport commission as they're doing tonight for you to review.
And who's then, Brian, I would ask you at the end of their letter where they ask for written response, is that something that you are going to take on in reference to this recent letter, or is that something we need to deal with? So
I think if you'd like to provide some direction on what the response from the airport commission would be in light of the letter, that would be useful.
I mean, my only concerns would be, given what you just spoke about and what Rich just spoke about, that we clarify any misstatements in their letter that they haven't been responded to previously, to indicate that they in fact have been responded to each time they've made a complaint. And secondarily, to reiterate that to our knowledge, the flight patterns being followed as published and as required by the FAA. I don't know what more can be said.
Would it help the city? I'm sorry, Cara, I want you to go.
Um, well, I think in response to what David just said, a lot of the things we just talked about when you were going through the attachments, there's a lot of that information that might be useful to create understanding of, why the airplanes are flying the way they do. I just wanted to add something to that. It was the attachment that showed the flight paths, the blue, the touch and go, and then it showed the straight in approaches. I don't know if you have that one, Brian.
Oh, from the packet?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think this is a great representation of what, like, the average is. You really get a sense of that. But in my own experience as a pilot and flying in the pattern, there are a lot of unexpected things. You've got other aircraft coming in the pattern. You might need to deviate for safety, outside of this. Sometimes, with the wildfire smoke that we've been dealing with, you might have to do something a little differently. So it's not that again, like, it wouldn't be an intentional in a bad way, but it may be intentional for a safety reason that people deviate outside of this, even knowing that there's a noise abatement pattern or the general approaches, but there are other safety reasons why people deviate from this common pattern that we see here. I just wanted to make that comment. And then actually another second one that actually separate from this, that just the fact that back to kind of we were talking about all the things that go on at the airport, for the community. Well, here's a related thing. We have, Dr. Woban, who's volunteering his time on the airport commission, but as a physician is there with MedFlight at Glacier Creek School just down the street. So there's a lot of opportunities where there's some generosity and education in our aviation community, not even just right at the airport, but nearby. So I just wanted to have that on the record too. That's it.
Thank you. Brian, I think one thing that I think is resonating through here that might help the city when responding to these residents is we do have the FAQ, and I've reviewed it again this month, and I think it's complete. I don't think there's anything more we can add to our FAQ section. But when the city says, to the city, they're writing the letter to you, will you please tell the airplanes to stop flying over our house? And that's the kind of statement I've seen in those letters. I think it would be fair for the city to say, the airport manager's followed up. We're not seeing any violations, for example. And this is out of the city's jurisdiction. And if that's true, you know, that, and we know it's true that the city of Middleton can't tell airplanes where they can and can't fly if they're flying within federally managed airspace and following all applicable rules. I think that would probably help people.
Yep, I agree. If I may jump in, one
Mhm.
thing that we should also keep in mind is even if that people have talked about going to a right-hand traffic pattern, we'd have the same problems and or overflights, right hand or left hand in this neighborhood because that's what's going to be happening. If 10 is on a right-hand pattern, we'd have it would be flying. Yeah, it'd be base and final would be over homes and could easily be over those homes as well. So it would not alleviate any of the overflights in this area.
Yeah, what we discussed last time about that was if there was a hypothetical 10 right-hand pattern, you wouldn't be able to fly the noise abatement procedure to fly for your takeoff on a 28 because you'd have to fly 28 straight out to avoid a non-standard flight pattern. So all the departures on 28 would go directly over the neighborhoods as opposed right now where they're under acceleration going away from the neighborhood. So that's well documented in our previous commission meeting when we got into that. I would encourage anybody in the public to go back and review that meeting and the information we provided during that.
So Brian, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or clarifications when you put the letter together, and I'll be happy to help out.
Okay, well, commissioners, I don't think if everybody's done with their comments, this is just a discussion item, so we could move on to item number 2. I'm just checking everybody out here, nodding some heads. Okay. Gonna make Lindsay speak up here sooner than later. Okay. Item number 2, review discussion of potential action on request for proposal, RFP, as it's called, for the airport manager service contract. Brian, why don't you start out with some introduction information?
Sure. So since we've got the airport manager's contract that's up at the end of 2026, I was asked to put together just a potential draft of an RFP if the airport commission and ultimately the city council wanted to go that direction for letting out an RFP for these professional services. This draft is based upon a couple of other manager contracts that I've seen kind of across the Midwest and country. So again, happy to receive any feedback that you might have on things you want added or changed. This is my first blush at this particular draft. So yeah, welcome any feedback, comments, or direction on what you'd like to do with this.
Sure, and bring that up on the screen. And I see Charles has his hand raised.
Yeah, I emailed with Brian and Matt earlier about section 15 lobbying. And Brian responded with so my concern is that someone might see the draft language and interpret it as something which prevents all contact with members of the airport commission, even on matters that are wholly unrelated to the contract itself or the award of it. So Brian proposed some alternate language in an email, which I think satisfies those concerns that I raised. And Brian, if you could bring the alternate language up.
Yeah, I'll just read it. So, where it says right now, vendors are not to contact members of the city of Middleton Common Council, mayor, airport commissioner, other elected and appointed officials, period. That would instead change to vendors are not to contact members of the city of Middleton Common Council, mayor, airport commission, or other elected and appointed officials, comma, to advocate for their RFP response or candidacy for the position, period. Vendors may contact staff regarding questions pertaining to the RFP process, period.
I like that. Much better. Oh, and picking on the word vendors. Do you want to use the word vendors? Because it could be an individual or it could be a business or vendor. Or is that
Yeah,
okay?
I can
Just
change
leave it alone.
I can change vendors to RFP respondents. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. Somebody has their phone off mute. It's MS Mish Brian. You can mute them. Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments for review? David.
Sure. I noticed in my quick review of the document, it calls for, there's a blank for the date sometime in 2025 that these RFPs are to be submitted. And certainly that's very important to fill that in. But I also had a concern that there's no date in there by which an RFP will, a contract will be granted based upon selection of the RFP. And I think it's important to put that in there because if someone comes in and wins an RFP, other than the current holder of the contract, there are issues of financing, there are issues of equipment and facilities that they would have to be able to get together in order to enter into a contract effective the first of 27. And so I think it's important for them, for any RFP submission to know that. And I think it's also important for us to know that people know the date that a RFP is going to be selected so that they know when they're creating their response to the RFP, they know what they're looking at in terms of the commitment money-wise and facilities or equipment-wise that comes before actually taking over in December of 20 or January of 27.
Does the commission have a recommendation on, the amount of time prior to December 2026 that the RFP would be decided or awarded one way or the other?
May I have I'd like a little input here.
Sure.
Okay. My suggestion would be to have it awarded by January of 2026. If indeed there is not a continuation of the Maury Airplane Company. Now, do be aware this isn't just the contract for the airport manager. There's also a contract for the FBO, which pretty much goes hand in hand with that. And I may be wrong in that, but it always has been. So if you can imagine Maury Airplane Company, who's been here since 1942 in this building since 2004, trying to relocate our operation to another airport. A year is not enough time to do that. But that, as this has been delayed or going on, I've been calling to have this done for quite a while. Now, again, the question I have also, and I suppose it's moot, but has Maury Airplane Company not been adequate or exemplary in our service? Why would the city put out a RFP to fill something, a void that isn't there? I mean, any operator, for instance, Capital Flight, can make a proposal toward, yeah, we want this or that or whether to the city, but to have a formal RFP, now you're inviting everyone in the Midwest and whoever else to come in with an implication that the city isn't necessarily happy with more airplane companies' operation. Now, perhaps I'm misreading that, but typically you don't advertise a job if you don't want to replace the current holder of that job.
Brian, I would leave that for you to respond to the city's rationale.
So a couple of things to clarify. One, the airport manager's contract is a separate and distinct contract from the fixed base operator contract. Those are two separate contracts. They are held by the same entity presently. This contract expires at the end of 2026, and so it's up to the airport commission to decide what you want to do when 2026 comes around. You could advocate that we go through an RFP process, or you could advocate and make a recommendation to the city council to extend an additional contract period to Maury Airplane Company for the airport management services. The fixed base operator contract runs on a similar time frame for the airport manager's contract. However, there is a 5-year extension period that the operator can avail themselves of to extend that contract for an additional 5 years to 2031. So that's why these contracts are on slightly different timeframes, even though they they both, as of now, conclude at the end of 2026. The FBO contract has been requested to extend to 2031, given the language in the existing contract. So again, I'm bringing this to you because I've only been with the city for 3 years now, so I don't know how we've handled this contract before in the past, and so I'm offering this as a discussion point for the commission.
Charles.
So, first, just I do want to apologize to the commission in advance for this question. But Brian, have you reviewed with Attorney Fleming whether or not certain members of this commission would have to recuse themselves from discussion of the RFP, even as a prospective document?
I have not, no.
It just seems like perhaps if somebody is, and Rich, you're a fantastic airport manager. This is not a reflection on you in any way, shape, or form, but I'd feel more comfortable if we discussed this after getting an all clear on the ethics policy from Attorney Fleming.
David?
Yeah, Charles, are you, I guess I'm not sure what you're concerned with. Are you concerned with anyone other than Rich being party to these conversations since he's the current contract holder? Or are you concerned with anyone else's involvement in this?
Please go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, so as I understand it, the ethics policy prohibits individuals with financial interests from engaging in deliberations concerning the award of city contracts. And that may apply here. So if it doesn't apply here, okay, but I think it might. And I want to make sure that before we take any action on this item, that we are adhering to the city's published ethics policy so that we don't have any issues.
Jack.
I second and totally concur with Charles's comments here. I think it'd be worthwhile checking that out just to avoid future conflicts in the future. I have absolutely zero reservations about the current administration of the airport and the FBO. But I don't want that any decision made by this body to potentially come under scrutiny or issue if we were to act on something and be found to not be in accordance with ethics.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. Also, no complaints about current administration, but if there are any things that folks wanted to raise, I want it to be in a safe environment where they feel that they can raise any concerns or other options that they'd like to explore. So that's a very valid concern. Thanks, Charles, for bringing that up.
Excellent. Brian, then maybe the question to ask the attorney when we think about all the local aviators involved. It could be, first, it would be anybody who would rent or use a service offered by Maury Inc. It would be hangar owners, right? Because they have a financial interest, or maybe not, I don't know. What else are we missing? Where you could
employees. Also, you would want to look into who's connected with Capital Flight as well, or anyone else who might be putting out a proposal toward the RFP. So it's going to be difficult if we don't know who's going to be making those proposals.
Mhm. Yep.
Are we talking about those who would have to recuse themselves?
More or less, yep.
Would you reach a quorum if all of the hangar owners or customers have to recuse themselves?
Hangar owners don't have obligations to the FBO or Maury. They're released
Correct.
from the city.
Right.
The question would be aircraft renter
Yeah,
or pilots who've used Maury or Maury staff for recurrency, training, biannual flight reviews. I mean, if there's money being exchanged between people on this commission and Maury Incorporated, but then as Charles,
yeah, and we could discuss the contours of that all night. This is why I think that it's better for us to send this to Matt Fleming, our city attorney,
oh yeah, absolutely. And that's
review
why
before going
I'm just
any
trying
further.
to give Brian all the scenarios to think of when he sends it. So now that we're here, give Brian your questions. I'm not asking for answers. I'm not asking for decisions or solutions. What I'm saying is we need to provide Brian now with as much information as possible. What do we want him to ask the city attorney? Because keep in mind, the city attorney is not an aviator, doesn't use the services at the airport. And in all fairness to the city attorney, he needs as much information as possible.
What is
I think
what
I
are the
have sufficient.
conditions?
I think I have sufficient guidance at the moment, and
Okay, Kara.
I was just going to say, like, what is done in terminology and relationships with other service providers that the
That's
city
what I was.
uses?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. What's the standard by which the city conducts its business with other RFPs?
Right.
Sure.
I would say as a council member, there are residents of the city who engage in business with the city and represent entities that carry out business with the city. So do we know what the personal relationships with those individuals are and city staff? Unknown. Charles?
Oh, I was just going to say that from my recollection, the ethics policy says that for the award of a contract where you specifically have a financial interest, you're supposed to not be present in the room when it's discussed.
Absolutely.
So I think we've given Brian the guidance that he needs.
Yep.
Sure.
You have, and we'll have the city attorney at the next meeting in which we discuss this item to answer any further questions.
Yeah, and preferably in advance of that meeting, let members of the airport commission who would need to recuse themselves know in advance so that no one's taken by surprise at the meeting. And that way we can order it correctly on the agenda so that people who would be necessary for other items can participate on those items.
Sure.
Can I ask a quick question, if I may?
Absolutely.
Is the RFP something that is just time limited, that is a standard thing that goes out for RFP on a scheduled basis, or is it on a like a continuation sort of thing until parties decide that it needs to go out to RFP? How is that handled?
You know, cities can handle professional service contracts differently. Some go out on RFP on a regular cycle. Others decide to do it on an ad hoc basis. I'm just providing this draft to you for your feedback on what direction you want to take, given that the current contract is up in 2026. So, if you were to move forward at some point in the future with the RFP, what would be done? It'd be sent out for some period of time. We'll say 2 months. Just as a round number for this moment, to give respondents time to respond back to that. They provide their proposals. Those proposals would come before the airport commission for your review. You'd make a determination on who you'd recommend. That recommendation would go to the city council to make the ultimate decision on awarding the contract, if you and the council decide to go that direction.
Is it within our purview then to decide if an RFP even needs to go out? Or is that not within our mandate?
I mean, you can provide that feedback and recommendation to the common council.
Because if we decide as the airport commission that we're happy with how things are right now and that an RFP is unnecessary, at least at this time, would that be an appropriate course of action amongst options?
That would be, a recommendation that you could make to the common council. I'd want to confer with the city attorney about that as well, but yes, that could be a recommendation that you make.
Okay.
I understand
Thank you.
I understand that's a recommendation we could make. I wouldn't want to do it if it could come back and be scrutinized because we ran afoul of some kind of ethics related thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree 100%. But I just kind of being new to the count. This is only my second meeting, so just trying to figure out what
David, you're
our
next.
guardrails are. So thank you.
Go ahead, David.
Sure. And I understand with the discussion about ethics follow-up, and sounds appropriate to me. Regardless of the outcome of that, and regardless if we decide an RFP should or should not go out, I'd like a little more clarification, and maybe it's right there and I'm missing it. But the distinction between the duties of the airport manager as opposed to the FBO. I'm not clear on I understand there are differences, but I'm not clear where the line is drawn explicitly. And I think it would be very helpful for us to make sure we all know that, since those two contracts are not expiring at the same time and are not in question in the same manner. And so I don't know if there's something out there that I'm missing in terms of something that's already written, and I think frankly that I'm going to assume perhaps that some of those duties or distinctions are blurred in fact anyways, but you've definitely got the FBO contract extending for another 5 years. There's nothing we can or need to or should do about that. And then you've got this issue now coming up about the management. And so to know how those two fit and fall together, I think is something that's going to be very important for all of us to understand before we decide where to go with this RFP issue.
Yeah. And Brian, you can make note of that for clarification discussion from you at some point, either tonight or in the future. Tara. Oh, no. Charles and then Kara, right, Charles, or can Kara go?
Oh, I was just going to move to defer consideration of the item, but Kara, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was like kind of dovetailing on what David was saying. I would like to understand a little bit more. We've got also a logistics issue of the building. As far as I understand, that's owned by a third entity. And so how would all of that play into, the contracts and limitations and, just logistics part of it? There's a question in my mind. I need some education, understanding where some problems would occur if there were changes and just what the whole ball of wax looks like.
Sure. Absolutely. This is excellent input. I mean, this is why we're doing this. We want to provide city staff with as much information as possible. So I also want to let people dial things back a little bit because this document is there and it's in front of you. That is why it comes here to this body. We are an advisory body. It's our job to review these things and provide input on it. So it's good that I guess what I'm trying to say is don't feel pressured about being into making decisions. It's our job to provide information. Kara.
Thank you for clarifying that about not feeling pressure to make decisions. But I am respectful of something Rich said about if there were to be changes, the timeline for making those changes. So not under pressure, but it does feel like this is a relatively important issue for us to move forward on, just because it would affect one way or another an existing business or two.
Sure. And I would say I feel that the city and its elected officials would not act in haste to try to get something done if it's going to be done incorrectly. So one of the things, and I'll just add some historical context to this, when you talk about the consistency of RFPs or not RFPs and how the city as a whole handles these types of things. I have talked to city staff about this in the past. And so from where I sit, and this would be outside the airport commission, my only message to the city on this has been, I want the city to operate in consistency. So if RFPs are how businesses, people, individuals, anybody who engages with the city for business are expected to be, then call it an RFP, call it what you want, but then the city is expected to do its diligence. The city engages in all kinds of vendors for numerous services. The city uses, I don't want to say dozens, but a lot of contracting and subcontracting firms for engineering expertise. Mead and Hunt is an example, right? City engages with Mead and Hunt for professional airport expertise, but the city also engages with very similar types of firms for road work, park design, water utility and resource management, ecological management of our conservancies and lands. The city staff themselves don't just sit down and sort this out. They go to these professionals. They review who these professional consulting firms are, and then engage with them at a level that makes the airport manager contract a pittance. These are contracts in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to engage in very large projects. And if you look over the city's history, you might say, hey, how come so-and-so always gets the contract for the project? There are other companies out there that are capable of it. So as a elected person in the city, and I think Charles would see it the exact same way, my only message to the city is be consistent. So when somebody comes asking, the city can respond with consistency. So shall we just say the driving forces of this RFP are so the city is demonstrating its diligence in this process? Because the question is just that, as I posted, I think. All right, so basically what we're doing is we're not asking for an action here in terms of a decision then tonight. So we don't have to, as a body, do that. We've provided city staff with input. We've provided city staff with direction. The question I think that Charles originally raised in getting this in front of the attorney to really see if there's any kinds of conflicts of interest here with this body. I don't know if, Brian, you need an actual motion from the commission, or is it just action is good enough at this point?
I think just formally a motion to continue discussion to a future meeting, pending discussion with the city attorney and the questions posed is sufficient at this point.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion on what Brian just said?
I will make that motion incorporating Brian's comments as my motion.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
great. And we have a second by David Schaefer, so a motion. All right. So in front of you, members, all those in favor, state aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item number 3. Review and discussion on current and future airport facilities, including related airport master plan, chapter number 3, facilities requirements and terminal building, in chapter 5, hangars. Brian, we'll just bring that up for everybody to see. While Brian's bringing that up, commissioners, I think it's important to review this regularly and ask ourselves to take a big picture look at the airport. Physically, what's there now? What the master plan lays out as potential options at the airport. And let me be crystal clear about that. What the master plan presents are options for what can be done at the airport, not a statement of what the city must do at the airport. And so what I wanted us to take a look at tonight were the facilities, specifically thinking about where is there opportunity for growth and development at the airport? Or is there no growth and opportunity for development at the airport? Specifically, looking at the master plan, and you can just move on to the next page, Brian. I think we have some pictures there. Okay, so starting with the terminal area, there's some available land there just to the east of the terminal building. This was designated in the master plan as a potential space for development. And I want to throw that out there, not looking for decisions tonight, but I think what's important is that we start providing feedback to staff, giving them a sense of direction and something to start thinking about. And it sends a message as to just that.
David, may I
Mhm.
speak to that in a historic light?
Why is it coming up historically?
No, I said, may I speak to it in a historic light? This was an issue that was brought before the Airport Commission maybe 5 years ago or thereabouts. And John Halleck, when he took over as the chair, looked at that area. And again, I've been at this since the beginning. That area was always in reserve for the terminal itself in the case that either the terminal wanted to expand or we had a business such as a restaurant that wanted to have something larger. And it is now simply a little park area, picnic area with the bike rack from I think the EA chapter put it in there, and a couple picnic tables. But again, yeah, there is potential to put a hangar there. That was what was discussed at the time. There is not enough ramp space to actually have some kind of an operation there, truly cramp anything that might be happening. That right in front of that area is often where the aircraft either park, as in the jets or the turboprops, and or, that's where's the compass rose, and that's where people do their run-ups. We're very limited on ramp space. I just wanted to give you that this has been looked at before. It was rejected in a previous body. That's not to say that this body would reject it for the same reasons, but it's certainly something to go back and look at as well, because again, not the first time we've talked about it.
Yeah, I think what's important to point out is, the airport's an enterprise fund. And as a result of being an enterprise fund, its revenue is restricted to what is at and on the airport. So we get, and that'll be at the end of our meeting. Of course, we'll review our finances. So I think it's important to understand that the airport is living like a retired person. It's on a fixed income. And with that fixed income, the only opportunity for more income is to generate our sources within the airport that would pay more revenue into the enterprise fund. Now, some of that can come from as the BOA assesses the aircraft at the airport and the operations at the airport. Maybe sometimes we can get a little bit more, a little bit less out of our grant assurances, so we can do development at the airport. But that doesn't really pad the enterprise fund, which is the operational expenses, the day-to-day, and also our future, call it co-pay for lack of better terms. If we want to do use our entitlements for maintenance, repair, and services, and growth and development, we always have to pay a portion. So I wanted you to see that. I wanted you to be aware of what's in the master plan and that it's there. And Brian, then you can go to the next section of it, which is hangars.
You're talking just the text or?
The image. The text is there because it's what's obviously just in the master plan. Just wanted to save people the time of having to shuffle through that massive document. Okay, so other than the facilities area, then we talk about opportunities for hangar development at the airport. And there are several areas. What the master plan outlines is kind of a pros and cons, or a good, better, best option. Some of the options are a heavy lift because you're basically talking about an area that is a wetland that would just, I guess, be enormously complicated to do development on in terms of prepping the land. Irrespective, all of it would require an environmental assessment. So you see areas to the west of the existing hangars along the fence line, and then you see an area to the east and north of the airport. And then, of course, on the next, there should be one more map in there. There we go. And then this quadrant. So each one has its challenges. Some of it's in wetlands. All of them would require some level of environmental assessment. And this one listed here on this final image to the north and east is not in the city of Middleton. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what do you do with what's a city do when it wants land that is outside its municipal boundaries? It pursues a process called annexation. And that's a long, complicated, potentially litigious process. So I think I've explained that one. And Tara, go ahead.
Is that area, just for I don't remember, is that town of Springfield or town of Middleton that those hangars fall in this proposed plan?
That's Middleton.
Okay, thanks.
And just to include in this piece of the discussion, because it is quite pertinent to it, and that's why I included it on the agenda, is the north-south runway. And actually, they're not constituents, the people who live to the west, who included that very old city proclamation in it. It's interesting, the proclamation said that the airport will not develop a north-south runway, when clearly the airport doesn't have a north-south runway. And as you can see, that proclamation was drafted in 1998. And that can just be an interesting technical question that Brian can answer. So how does a city, if a proclamation is issued in 1998 and we built the north-south runway at some point in time thereafter, Brian, I guess each common council can do whatever they want. Is that what it boils down to at the end of the day?
Resolutions from city councils, common councils are an expression of the intent and opinion of the body that adopts them at that time. Provided that they don't have, they're different than an ordinance. Ordinance is a piece of legislation, law, if you will, local law. Resolutions are expressions of intent and ideas, so there can be changes over in councils, and councils can adopt, a different resolution that is has a different opinion than a previous council adopted with a previous resolution. So I can't speak to the specifics of that resolution in 1998 and what other resolutions might have come after that, but I suspect that after that 1998 council was replaced by other councils, those future councils decided to make a different decision and go in a different direction.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment and then we'll get to Jack. So the point in that is really just that. Airports change, things change, cities change, and so over time, I think it is our job and to do our due diligence to always review these things of where we were at, where we are now, and what the future has. Go ahead, Jack. Did you? Yep, there you go.
Yeah. No, it's good to review these. I think it is, and had seen the diagrams, and like I said, good to review them. One of the, I guess, this to proceed or recommend to proceed isn't going to originate with this body. I wouldn't think. What are the tripwires that say, hey, we should really think about moving forward with one or the other of these things? Is it a hangar purchase waiting list? Is it numbers of operations? What would prompt us to begin the process of recommending the town or the city consider these types of developments?
Yeah, that is the big question, and that's why it's in front of us. And it's all of the above, and any and all of the above. So the airport as an enterprise needs to consistently generate revenue for its existence, as any city operation does. So the mindset, and that's why I'm putting it in front of you, is do we have an obligation to continue to look at this and seek opportunities for development? David?
Sure, and I, there's no authority for this other than my own personal thoughts, but Jack, in response to your question, I don't think that anybody is going to come forth and say we should have more hangars at the Middleton airport unless it's initiated through this body, this commission. So that's why certainly I think it's appropriate to have it, before us as we have. The
I
other
could
thing,
see, I could see us originating, I guess, David, but we don't have the data to be the one that's, and we're not in operational control or an operational view of what the needs are.
right. I think what we would do is, as this body suggests to the city that further work be done on this, because we do see in various forms the potential for a need, and one of the items on the agenda that's typically on the agenda is economic development as related to the airport. Well, adding 25 hangars to the airport is going to engender economic development. And it's going to enhance the funding that David is talking about, but it's also going to engender economic development for the city by having more hangars here. Again, anecdotally, I used to hangar in Iowa County. Iowa County, I'm guessing about 10 years ago, built a section of T hangars. I don't know how many. My guess is at least 20, and they were snatched up right away. Sauk Airport is more than doubling the size of their hangars, and so there's obviously in the area a demonstrated need or desire. But yeah, I certainly don't have the answers to which of those plans or if any of those plans would be viable or appropriate. But again, to get the ball rolling, I think it's this body to do something to push it forward.
Yeah, I think one quick question on just with that process, if we were to recommend something to move forward. So for an example, let's say adding 25 hangars, like you're saying. It would be then our recommendation to the Common Council, or where does it go from there? Because I'm assuming this would have to go to some amount of public opinion vote, right?
Yes, that would be a decision of the Common Council as to whether or not to implement any piece of the master plan.
Okay. Just want to note that before we maybe take any kind of action like that, I know Rich was talking earlier about maybe investigating options of, putting a little bit more out there in the press and, just kind of local awareness around the good that the airport does. I think, if we're going to move forward with some kind of recommendation in the next, let's say, 6 months to a year, I do think that should be a concerted effort, in conjunction with that is really, um, making folks aware locally of the good that the airport does. Just because I know, there's big opinions and big feelings around some aspects of the airport. So I would want us to start on kind of the best ground we can with that. If there was, a proposal of that magnitude that would be coming to public opinion at some point. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, I don't disagree, Lindsay, with what you're saying. And just for clarification, I'm not suggesting that this body's statement or position to the city council would be, we absolutely need this and here's what it is. I think it would be a point of asking the city if we could engage in some study, and if the city was willing to support some studies as to what might be possible or appropriate to take the next step consistent with the master plan that's been sitting out there for many years.
Carlos?
Yeah, and not to speak for my colleagues specifically, but Dave, I'm sure you wouldn't disagree based on your own interactions with everyone else on council, the specific financial need and impact of additional hangars on the enterprise and its financial viability would be something that I think a lot of them would need and want to see. And Dave, please feel to correct me if you think I'm mistaken about council's financial interest in the health or interest in the financial necessity of certain things in the airport.
Right. Jack, go ahead.
No, I think Charles nailed it, David, too. I mean, any business person would want to understand the financial rationale associated with adding, investing to add additional capacity. Yeah, you would expand the tax base on, if you were to add X number of hangars, but it's going to, because of the different options that are outlined, they all have different associated development related costs. And you'd want to understand that. And right now, the city doesn't have, other than maybe us or Rich and his organization who are monitoring the operations of the airport. Nobody has an eye on the development associated with the airport. There's not a development director or a development manager associated with the airport, from my perspective, who would say like, "Hey, we have a waiting list of 20 people who would sign tomorrow if we had an available hangar or development agreement for a hangar for them." Maybe that list exists. I don't. I'm ignorant and don't know where it is or what it is, but I haven't seen that list. Or if there's other operators that would love to have access to the airport, but they just don't have the capacity to be able to be here. There's not a development shepherd, if you will, to that's watching over those events and bringing kind of the bringing all of those things together for Middleton or the airport.
So I can answer a couple questions for you, Jack. One, first of all, the residents of Middleton, in terms of as their taxpayers, their property taxes do not go to the airport. So the airport operates in an enterprise fund and it generates its own revenue. So me as a resident of Middleton, 50% of my taxes basically go to the city general fund, and the other half goes, of course, to the schools, but it doesn't go into the enterprise fund, which is for the airport. So really, I think when you look at it from that standpoint, it's everything is in the master plan. There's some exhibits at the end of it that actually show all the people who expressed an interest in hangars at the airport. So that's documented for the city. We know for a fact that people have expressed an interest, and that is in the master plan. And we also have in the master plan letters of reference from local businesses and business owners that have also expressed a desire that if the airport had more capability to house or host their interest and needs, they would also utilize it. And I think what that demonstrates is, and this is of course, the master plan is an ask by the FAA as a grant recipient that you do this every 10 years or so, because this allows them to budget literally for us. So now it's incumbent on us to go back to them and say, okay, here's how we want to spend your money. So 90% of that money will come from that grant. The 10% or 5% will come from our enterprise fund. So there's money literally sitting on the table. So in some microcosm, the city has to put the money up front. If we want hangars, we have to engage with a consulting firm. They have to do all the design and engineering work, and we have to complete an environmental assessment. Hypothetically, let's just throw a figure out there, $500,000. Okay, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there for the sake of discussion. City has to pay that up front. Now we push all that forward after we've done everything. Common Council, yep, build your hangars. Yes, allocate the money from the enterprise fund. Yes, engage with these third parties to get all this work done. And we do it all. We package it all up and we send it off to the FAA. And by the time it gets there, our consultants have done their due diligence. The FAA is going to pretty much look at it and say, yeah, this is good. It falls within grant assurances. So they will now cover that portion of the infrastructure for us, which is going to be in the millions of dollars, not just 500,000, but millions to do all that work. So that's the process. Now, one more piece I'll throw in there is you say, well, the Airport Enterprise Fund doesn't have $500,000 to do this up front, right? We don't. It's not there. So how do we do it? We either ask for the extension of a TIF district, which is a financial funding district that cities create, or we create a tax incremental financing district, TIF district, for the airport. So these are big processes that take a lot of time and require a lot of support from the elected officials and the will of the elected officials. The city just did it for a business that the city is going in our industrial park. I don't think there's anything private about it anymore, Brian.
Yes, it's still there is an NDA that still covers that.
Okay. So no names mentioned, but it went through the state legislature, and the state legislature said, yeah, this is a good thing to do, Middleton. We're going to support you in creating a tax incremental finance district to keep, promote, and generate economic opportunity. So big picture. And that's why this is in front of you tonight, because if we don't think about it as a body and get your head around it, when I've had people come to me as the commissioner, you do get a bit of a target on your back, and they come up to me and they're like, why aren't you doing this at the airport? I'm like, what? Well, how come you're not building? How come you're not developing? How come you're not promoting business? Because the other airports in the area are building and developing hangars. Sauca's doing it, Reedsburg's doing it. They're all putting hangars in. How come we're not? So I sit there kind of sheepishly and say, well, but we got neighbors to the west, we got environmental assessments, we got wetlands, we got this, we got that. I sound like a cranky old guy who doesn't know what to do. So that's how we make traction with it. And so the real question to this body is, we can say to Brian, hey, guess what? We want you to put time into this as the city. And that's their time and money as well. So, we're asking them to allocate their resources away from other work maybe that they're doing, right? And so we sort of have to start somewhere if we want to get somewhere. And so that's somewhere we have to initiate that process. And that's why I'm throwing it at you tonight. So I think you're going to say, well, then what do we do, Dave, right? Well, we can say right here and now, hey, Brian, look into something. Answer some of these questions for us and come back to the next meeting and educate us. We can go that far. Or we can get more pushy. Rich.
Let's see. Am I muted? Stand by.
No, you're okay.
Oh,
I hear you.
Yeah. I just wanted everyone to know that there is no easy way to build anything on this airport at the moment, because we're essentially don't have any building sites. There's a potential in one wet area for 4 or 5 hangars. It'd be horribly expensive. There's that parcel just next door to the terminal, and that's it. So
That's right.
anything we do would require purchasing and annexation. That's one thing. And then just to give you the FAA in itself, a project that is simply to put hangars in has a very low priority with the FAA. Building a crosswind runway, which is why that whole master plan had that option over there, whatever they were, 1A, 2A, or whatever. That was a way in to be able to acquire land, develop land, and set up the taxiways. But just to, we put in a project, says, okay, I want to buy X number of acres. We're going to put in taxiways. We're going to put in a bunch of hangars. FAA is saying, oh, that's a great project, but we probably aren't going to be funding it. That's all I have.
Right. Yeah, right. There's that risk.
Mhm.
So now we can pull the politics into it, right? People to the west don't want us flying airports over their house. Well, then we build a north-south runway. That's what we do. We build a north-south runway. And FAA likes it when you build big runways. Well, they're, like Rich said, they're more willing to. Charles.
I think that just in the interests of giving city staff a useful direction on this,
Mhm.
We might want to conduct an economic analysis of the potential additional revenue generated that would be generated by the hangar options currently under consideration. That would probably go a long way toward informing both this body and Common Council if we were to refer something out.
Sure. I mean, what staff could do is say, if we were to add a revenue generating source to the east of the terminal, or even expanded the terminal, but that would, mean working with MADC somehow. But bottom line is, what would that, what was it, 7,000 square feet? How much revenue would that generate, right, per month? And then hypothetically, you look at the putting hangars in with the space we have and say, well, okay, how much revenue would that generate, monthly into the enterprise fund? And a simple chit chat with Mead and Hunt for a very thumbnail sketch of, hey, what do you think we would be up against to do environmental assessment and pave and bring water and sewer and electricity in? What do you think that would cost? And then you're absolutely correct, Charles. Now that's quite a bit of work on staff time. I mean, that's hours of work and phone calls and some spreadsheet work and doing some things. And we could leave it sit the way it is tonight and think about if we really want to direct staff to do that, or if we want to direct staff to come back to this commission at some point in time in the future with some of those answers. Because that is the question to this body. Or we do nothing. We say, nope, airport's fine, status quo is good. We don't have to even think about north-south runways. And we leave things alone. I mean, I also want this body to sort of let people know kind of what the will is. Carl.
I mean, I like the idea of doing some investigation into numbers, from the revenue standpoint. I mean, the master plan was created for a reason. And, I don't, even if the overriding desire even of the airport commission was like, let's keep the status quo, the city's going to grow whether we like it or not. And the city's needs are going to grow whether we like it or not. And aviation in our county and the needs are going to grow whether we like it or not, or our neighbors like it or not. And so for us to, I think, do due diligence and start doing some homework on, okay, here's the cost, but also here's the revenue. that could answer questions not only about the enterprise fund, but also so people, including us, we look at the master plan and we see the version where the hangars are to the northwest of what's now the grass runway. Okay, what would be the potential income if that was the section? And maybe that information is there and I missed it, but I really like what Charles is bringing up, and I don't know how to move that forward as a directive, even if it means what's the proposal to do that kind of an assessment. But I feel my personal feeling is, we're here for a reason to preserve and protect and do what we need with, for the airport and the city of Middleton. And, my feeling is like, let's move forward on something as far as doing some research.
Okay. All right, I see this heading in a direction. Jack?
Yeah, I'm just going to pile on. I totally agree. This is, I mean, they're concepts without putting some kind of financial bounds around them. And it's not just the tax and enterprise fund related effects. It's effects on operations too. If you were to have a north-south runway, there's and local community business related effects that we would model. So I think you need to do that. Not to push one or the other forward, but to continue if or when something does need to be proposed. You're going to be very well armed with the financial data to be able to do so.
Gotcha. Rich?
Sure. It isn't that difficult to figure out the square footage of either of those alternates, and or just what is actually buildable and or leasable to the east of the terminal. And then we know about what the land lease is, so we'll know what we'd be generating per year. And then you can put that against what the actual cost would be to develop that parcel. That gives it a pretty good cost benefit analysis. That's a little, isn't all that difficult, because now we have an idea at least of what, at least at one point, what those projects would cost. And we can, but even just to get the ballpark figure, we'd have a pretty fair idea.
Gotcha. And I think the other thing that we would have to be clear on is, are we talking about working within the perimeter of the airport, city of Middleton boundaries? Or are we looking at outside the airport, north-south runway annexation and hangar development project? Sarah?
And maybe I wasn't clear. I was like, let's look at all of it. Let's look at every option that's presented in the master plan and within the existing boundaries. And, what are we looking at here? Because then we have the whole thing that we're looking to take action on, basically.
Gotcha. Charles?
Yeah, and that I'm sorry, I was unclear in my initial suggestion, but yes, I fully intended the economic analysis to be each of the options presented within the master plan for this, because if we're potentially making a decision as a body and then recommending it onto council, we are going to want to make whatever decision we do make, including no decision, with our best estimate of real numbers, and council will in turn want to have access to real numbers as well, or at least the best approximation thereof that we have.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second, third, whatever that.
Sure.
Right now,
Sure.
it doesn't feel like we have enough to go on in order to make any kind of informed decision. So
Okay.
having that is helpful.
So
Would there
Brian,
be an,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
so I was just going to say, just thinking about it, would there be an advantage to looking at the options within the existing footprint of the airport rather than expanding? And then I may be playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, because in the back of my mind, if you start exploring options of annexing land and things like that, is that going to generate a firestorm of controversy within the community surrounding, when we're just talking about potentially opening up to potential hangar building options. So
Right, those are right. Good, excellent question. So we work within the framework of the master plan, and each one of those options, yes, some are within all the perimeter of the airport and boundary, and others, of course, are outside of it, like northwest, north runway development, and of course, a very large hangar development to the northeast. So it's everything. It's within and outside. So obviously, it would be a lightning rod of sorts. But that's not new to the Common Council and those familiar with it. Um, it's clearly outlined in the master plan. And I can go back over 3 years now, and even further. Um, it's the town of Middleton, that doesn't want the airplanes flying over their town. Then the solution is you have a north runway, north-south runway, and you start shifting traffic that way. So it's and that's why you have the master plan. Carlos?
Yeah, and just to sort of follow up here, right now, if we were to make a decision on any of these, we would be doing so without any hard data one way or the other. And it may come back that the options requiring annexation are, for one reason or another, not economically viable. That is without, prejudging the economic analysis. That is a distinct possibility that we have to allow for. So wouldn't we want to know that before potentially discussing that, which may be controversial?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. And the BOA does have people, and it's their sole job to work just in the areas of land acquisition. So, um, Brian and our consultants have resources they can go to. So, to really almost get, I would call it legal advice on some of this stuff as well, because they've done it in the past. So, Brian, I think you're getting a sense of things. What would you like from this body?
Not sure that I need anything more at the moment. I will say that what you've asked for is pretty broad in scope, so it will take a while. And I want to be very clear about that. This is to scope out what this is going to look like and talk with people with the BOA and meet and hunt to try to figure out how to pin down some of this information is going to take quite a bit of time. So this is not something that will be ready for our next meeting necessarily, but I will do my best to kind of scope out what this can look like.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I guess I just want to provide everybody here with some backstory. I would say it would be very fair to say that I have been getting a lot of input from parties and people interested in our airport, and they either want development or they want answers. And I've said to them time and time again, I can't give you either one of those. It is the city's responsibility to come back and provide that information. The city owns the land, the city owns the airport, and that means the city staff have to do the work. And so this is just on par with any other project that the city has going on, and that this has very much the same flavor to it. And so this is kind of preliminary things that we're asking city staff to do. But the ask hasn't been made, really, since the master plan was done, and nothing has taken place out at the airport. Really, since the last set of hangars were put in to the east of the terminal. And I think it would be fair for the city to have an economic picture. And if you're okay with not setting any hard, deadlines right now with the city staff, I'm okay, but I think we simply have to hold city staff to come back to us with something. Fair enough, Brian?
I mean, I can appreciate that, but I'm going to give you the caveat that I'm the only staff person that's working on this. So I do ask a little patience and grace because this will take a big effort to get you what you're looking for, but I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. I think we all appreciate that this is a lot of work that is dependent on responses from other parties. So I don't think anybody's expecting an answer next week, next month, or potentially even within the next quarter. We just want this information so that we can move forward.
And I want you as the commission to hear that from Brian and everybody else listening in. This is how things get done in the city. There is only one or two staff people sometimes to work on some projects. And so this is why the city ends up literally going to a consulting firm and spending tens of thousands of dollars to get things done. And the city does that. The city the city does it all the time. So that's how it happens. Okay. Tara.
Do we, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to have
Mhm.
to go here. Do we need to vote on this or anything? Because I'd like to do that before I have to jump in and go.
I don't know that it needs a formal motion. I've got some direction for you, and as I have updates on what's going on, I could provide that at future meetings. But I think I have enough direction to at least kind of scope some things out.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on.
David.
Oh, Kara, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to really acknowledge Brian, for, serving in this role, and aside from all your other administrator duties, like it's really important and really vital, I believe. And I'm just really grateful, like sure I can speak for the rest of the commission that you're doing this. And there are a lot of pilots and people connected to the aviation community that may be able to support you with information or connections or data, things like that. So if as you move along and you find that there's some areas you have questions about, don't hesitate to reach out, because we know someone who knows someone who knows someone that can help fill in those gaps and would love to.
Yeah, I as I've learned as now being part of this body, sometimes to just get things done, you just have to be the one to do it. So, for example, the information you see in the agenda tonight are things that I put together and I send off to Brian. So, as any member of this commission is absolutely encouraged to take a very deep dive into the master plan. And if you see something that's relevant in there, extract the PDF page and send it on to Brian. So, okay. Now for some important business, update discussion and potential action on our parallel turf runway operation. And this basically, we're looking for an update from Rich and Brian as to where we are and if this is going to happen.
Okay. Well, I can speak to it to a small extent. It's certainly possible. It may not be possible this year, considering the relatively low level of the alternate landing area and the moisture, the wetness that we've had. Now we've had a week without, so things are beginning to firm up, and as I said, Mr. Wagner was able to hay that area finally. So we should be able to get out there and walk it and get a little better detail about it. I am at whatever you guys, the whatever the city decides to do, we can easily extend our mowing once it's dry enough for our mower to operate over there and widen it up. But I don't think anyone, even if you have a flotation tire on your airplane, you don't really want to be landing in wetness or mud. So it's
Okay, so Brian, do you have any information and update on this?
That the airport manager's information is the information that I've got. Again, kind of to get a better sense of how the grass is going to hold up. But we can take a look here as things dry out and provide an update if we think it's a go a little bit later in the fall.
Okay, so would it simply be fair for this body to direct the airport manager to use the tools and resources and knowledge and skill at the airport manager's disposal to keep local interested parties informed at obviously within the guidelines put forth by these ACs to use the parallel operation at their risk, and that's it. I mean, we can't sit here as a commission and say, okay, you can fly on it next week, but not the week after, but this month, but not next month. So I think what we just have to do is say the city is comfortable with delegating the airport manager the responsibility of maintaining that area and deciding whether it's usable or not, the end.
nope, I don't like that.
Okay, so what do you want, Rich? I mean, because as the manager, you have to do something. We can't, I don't think the commission can sit here
No,
each month and say, okay, you can fly, okay, you can't fly.
of course not, David. David,
Okay.
it is, if you're going to be landing at a non-approved landing area, it's landed on risk. If you're going to land at a closed runway, which people do all winter on our, that's landed on risk.
Okay.
For me to say on a daily basis, okay, this isn't developed as a runway, it isn't maintained as a runway, it is simply, short grass, and it's safe for someone to land on. No, I don't have that engineering expertise.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And honestly, once that the hay bales are off of there, the people, there's nothing that I can do as an airport manager to stop anyone from landing over there if they want to. That's
Sure.
the FAA has not given me or the city even that that ability.
Sure, I understand, but I guess what the city is saying, maybe what the city is saying to you, you can mow that area, and what people decide to do with it is up to them. And if you can't mow that area, you don't mow that area. I mean, as opposed to not mowing the area at all. David.
Yeah, two questions. First question is this one of those items, again, that should be referred to the city attorney when we're talking of doing something at your own risk or whatever that's adjacent to a runway that isn't subject to that sort of specific requirement? So that's one comment I have. The other comment or question that I have, would it be possible or necessary or appropriate to have a NOTAM to the extent that, yeah, that's there, but it's at your own risk?
Well, I would say absolutely with the NOTAM and also in the airport facility directory, if there is going to be an established section. Yeah, I would agree with that. It was a thing in the past. We simply mowed it wide, and then people landed there, and then the city took a little stronger look at it before the new advisory circular was out, and said, no, we really don't have any way to do this legally. So they didn't. The airport commission and the city decided not to have us mow that wide. Now that there is an advisory circular, there is a legal means to go about it. I think it's a wise choice to have the city the legal team take a look at that and see where we're at, see if our insurance covers it, if there's any potential liability, or if it is simply, again, a landed own risk and we're just going to mow it wide. Those are questions that need to be answered. As the airport manager, I'm going to advise you on that. Again, if the city tells me to mow it wide, I'll mow it wide. Simple as that, if we don't get rutted up and get our vehicles stuck. So,
And putting those concepts together, I'm sure it wouldn't hurt the city attorney looking at this to know and see that there's a NOTAM out there and what that NOTAM is.
we can easily put a NOTAM out. Takes about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think and Brian can look back at the previous meetings, input from the BOA. If we're operating within the guidelines of these two ACs, it does not have to be designated as an operational surface area. It's as David's recommending, it's a NOTAM and it's an airport facilities directory. And it simply would say, there's nothing saying you can't operate parallel to the runway, but if you are, it's at your risk. And that's basically what the AC says. And so I guess the question is, from an operational standpoint for guidance to Rich, it would be, Rich, mow as much grass as you can, and if you can't, you don't. And if we have ourselves covered with a NOTAM and a airport facilities directory, we're done. So do you want to run that past Matt Fleming one more time, Brian? Okay. Do you need a motion from us, or is this okay for this direction?
I think that's sufficient direction at this moment.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments? Nope. All right. I know it's getting late. Keep it moving on. Review and discussion on airport mowing operations. Why is this on the agenda if we discussed it in the airport managers review? I think it would be, the reason it's coming up is based on some input from parties interested in the airport. What I'd like to do is basically say, what are standards for mowing, and which, if there are any, what should they be? The city does mow its parks and fields and movement areas, and they do it routinely, and they, I don't know, cut the grass to a level that allows people to use the soccer fields, things like that. So just looking for the commission input on this.
Well, perhaps I should tell you what our operation parameters are when it comes to cutting the grass. Greg and Jeff and the rest of our line guys have a rotation. Greg is in charge of that. We keep the grass at a reasonable level, consistent with how wet things actually are. We've had an awful lot of rain up until this last week. So admittedly, we were not at our normal manicured level. It was a little bit longer. I would state my reputation on saying that we were far better than an awful lot of the airports. I came back from Rice Lake, and I can show you the pictures of their mowing up there and what they are doing. Now, that may well be a decision for conservation or whatever, but honestly, I think they just got behind it with the wet. So we do have a routine. We have it set up. We're not going to try to mow if we're going to rut up the grass, because that just makes more work. And then we get out there and we take care of it. The areas that the FAA definitely wants to be cut are outside of our direct control. That's where the section just west of our localizer antenna has to be cut to a certain level. And that is why Larry Wagner will go in there and crop that area first before he does the rest of the airport. So, but we do have a rotation. We keep to it as best we can as the conditions, the field conditions allow.
Brian, do you have any? Sarah, go ahead, and then I really want to hear from city staff in terms of expectations and any comments. Go ahead, Cara.
Yeah, I had a question, Rich, or maybe it's for you or Brian, just about like the fence lines. Like if that is that airport, keeping like fence lines clear. Is that the airport? Is that the city? Anyway, just the perimeter is what I was thinking about.
If it's inside the fence, it's the airport, although we work outside the fence as well. And again, we're not able to get the mechanical mower in to do what we would have liked to do last winter, simply because of the conditions, the ground conditions, and then the lead time. Not having the equipment here, we can't just pick a day and go. We have to set up for a week's lease on that articulating arm mower, have the conditions correct, have the staffing available, and then get it done. We've been able to do that in the past. Last year, no, it didn't work out. Didn't have the hard freeze that we needed.
So that's kind of on your agenda for this winter, presuming our Mother Nature cooperates with us.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the other reasons why in the BOA petition that we most recently did earlier this year, we have the articulating arm piece of equipment on that petition so that we can have that equipment in-house to help with things like not only the creek clear up, but also against the fence mowing, which I know has been a challenge with some of the equipment that we have on property right now.
Absolutely. And
What's the timeline, Brian, on the BOA petition? I might have missed that.
I can speak to that a little bit later, but it's basically on their desks for signatures as we speak.
Thank you both.
And Brian, do you have any thoughts in terms of city's expectations of where things should be or where they're at? Or
yeah, it's a good question. I think it's something that kind of balancing a couple different things. So one, obviously, safety being paramount here for people at the airport, both aviators and otherwise. But also, it is a natural environment as well, and so there are certain things that we probably want to that are probably okay at the airport in terms of, like, for example, pollinators. But we know that having additional high grass is probably an attractor for other types of wildlife that we would not be necessarily compatible with airport operations. So one of the things that I'm looking into now is conversations with the other airports to see kind of what their standards of practice are, so that we can make sure that we're in line in terms of height of grass and that type of stuff, and how far we mow around some of the infrastructure there. So yeah, more work to go on that.
okay, yeah, and I guess I would just encourage Rich and Brian to communicate as directly as much as possible on this and deal with it. Historically, I've been out at the airport for 20 years. In my opinion, I think that it's been maintained just fine. Grass is fine. Mowing operations are fine. I have never observed any areas of personal concern.
Mhm.
So
I know it's getting late. I just want to make one
Okay.
comment. There are times when letting the grass grow tall actually enhances safety. The infield directly in front of the hangars in the in the ramp, when we mowed it right down to the grass and there was water standing there, we had ducks that were there constantly. We had 6 duck strikes in 1 year out of that area. By letting the reeds grow up in there, now the ducks won't nest there because they can't see any predators coming in. It's too thick. We went from 6 duck strikes in 1 year to no duck strikes in 1 year. So there are options here that seem counterintuitive. Why would you let that the reeds and the cattails grow up is because it actually discourages the damn ducks.
Mhm.
Sorry about the language.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm trying to summarize here is I don't see any deficiencies, in terms of management of this. And I just again encourage Rich and Brian to communicate on this directly, and I encourage Rich and Brian to reach out to the BOA and any and all resources that they have at their disposal to really just determine what is necessary and to do it within those parameters. And to provide us, maybe this body, with a bit more technical update in the future if necessary. Commissioners, any more questions for Rich on this regarding mowing operations? Okay.
Mine's
Number
not a
6.
question, but I would
Oh.
love to see the goats come back, Rich.
Well, yeah, no, seriously, as far as mowing and brush management operations go, again, I think we're trying to give, it's in the airport manager's job to look at all of this and determine, best course of actions for managing brush and grass and everything at the airport. And, if goats are a solution, then that's something that needs to be explored. Seriously, it's the city's responsibility to do that work, just like they do with all of our parks and all of our conservancies and all of our wetlands and everything. The airport should be treated no differently, with the exception that Rich is following guidelines that are given to him by the BOA and FAA. So, all right, on to the next item. This is a review and discussion of potential action on airport policy for using airport as a community space. So we all know already that the airport is used. There's been large events hosted out there. There are events hosted out there this summer, small events. Charles brought this to us. I'm not aware of any documentation, providing guidance on this within the framework of the city. So I think it's an opportunity for staff to get some input from this body. If what to do if we need to put something together. I remember reviewing our ordinances not too long ago, and I just don't think there's really much in there in the ordinance piece. So
Yeah,
or
there's
even the
not
zoning,
much in the
yeah.
ordinance other than depending on the size of an event that's being asked to be held at the airport, then it, in some cases, would trigger the special event permit process, which we've gone through with other events. And so this body and other bodies within the city would review those special events and decide whether or not to approve them. For smaller, community-based rentals of stuff on the airport property, there's less guidance in current policy about that.
Yeah, and maybe also private events. And the thing is, what would be the impact of a private event, and how would that event impact the utilization of airport resources? So, if there's going to be a private event and they want something done to make space more accommodating to it, would there be expectations on staff to get out there and do that? So I guess let's just give Brian some ideas and thoughts, and can always come back to us with an outline on it. Charles?
Yeah, I just when I asked to add this to the agenda, I was thinking exactly as you said, Dave, as a sort of ideas for policy development discussion, and not taking any specific action on it beyond directing staff to develop policy along general guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's probably is something out there that some other airport has done somewhere that we can find through AI or some kind of search. I'm certainly happy to look at any draft documents and throw my 2 cents at it. And if Brian finds stuff, he can share that, to this body. As long as you don't respond to each other, you just review it and send it directly back to Brian. It can be something that we can then look at also at a future meeting. This is how we, kind of get stuff going anyhow. Do you want any direction from us, Brian, or do you want to? You have a sense of it?
I think I have a sense of it. You're asking to have me look at other comparable airports to see what, if any, policies they might have on some of these
Yeah.
topics about how space is used.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
That should be
public
sufficient.
private events. If you come back and say, hey, guess what? There's nothing. Okay, well, then that gives us something to think about.
If Brian comes back and says, "Hey, there's nothing," I think all of us owe Rich actually a big thank you for innovation in the use of airports as a community space.
Well, you're welcome. The community, other than when we do our pancake breakfast, where we utilize the ramp area for displays and such as is appropriate, and that is a charitable event. Anything that happens here is always on the footprint of our leased land, and I'm happy to. The entire airport's open to charitable events or community-based events, as far as I'm concerned. At least what I have direct control over. We're not going to shut the airport down to let the Porsche Club go up and down. As much as they'd love to do that, we're not going to do it. On the other hand, when the Girl Scouts want the meeting space, they've got it for free. Simple as that.
Right, and so, Rich is really using his facility, his FBO facility for these types of things. And I guess the thing for maybe Brian will find some information out there is, what do you do when somebody actually wants to host something that is not for the public benefit or open to the public, but it's strictly private, and they want to use airport space outside of, say, maybe their own space. What if you're a hangar owner out there, right? And you say, hey, it's my 60th birthday and I'm going to have the biggest party possible, and I can't have it in my hangar. So, can I use some green space out there? And maybe I'll go into the office and ask Rich if he'd get his staff out there to get the grass cut or something. What's Rich's response and responsibility? And then what's the city's responsibility? Because that is the city land, right? It's city land. I can go down to a public park and use a shelter and celebrate my birthday with family and friends. There's no rule that says I can't. But this is an airport. It's a different environment. It's inside a space that is designed for the movement and aircraft and the support of aircraft movement and operations. And so if I'm having a private party and an airplane runs off the runway and hits people, what happens? So these are good questions, and we'll get some answers. So, okay. Brian, let's pull that letter up. Review and discussion of correspondence from the U.S. Department of Transportation to all recipients of FAA funding regarding a recent executive order. Commissioners, this was sent to all of us, and Rich received it in his inbox and promptly got it out. Brian, I'll let you take it from here in terms of the things that have already been asked and the things that you've already answered.
Yeah, so the question, just given this letter, the question was whether or not this letter has any impact on the city's 2025 BOA petition that was submitted earlier this year. I spoke with our staff liaison at the BOA on 2 occasions about this, asked him, directly if this has an impact on the petition request that we submitted, meaning whether or not we have to change anything in the petition. And his guidance, based upon those questions, was that our petition was not impacted by this letter, and we don't need to change any of the language or description for items in our petition request at this time. There are some things in our petition request that are what they would classify as special projects. The BOA would classify as special projects, so that might take a little bit more in terms of eligibility can be established for those projects, but whether or not those particular items get funded is a separate question and review process for BOA. But as it pertains to this item, the BOA's guidance at this time was that no, we don't need to change our petition request that we'd submitted earlier this year.
Thank you, Brian. And I guess in kind of the plain language, when I looked at it, and my gut reaction was, well, if we want to put LED lights in at the airport, is that contradictory to this directive? LED lights are efficiency. LED lights are cutting down on, carbon emission because you're consuming less electricity, and we know supply chain there. So it was kind of those kinds of things just had me concerned. And go ahead, Lindsay.
I think I've seen this implemented in other areas of just, if this is what the guidance is going to be, then we just get, for lack of a better word, creative with wording. Maybe we don't call them energy efficient, call them amazing with electricity or something. I don't know. Like there's if we are going to have to adhere to not being able to use certain words, then we can pick other words to use that may be more appealing to folks.
Right, exactly. Charles.
Yeah, I was just going to say, call them cost efficient lights, problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
That's our that is our goal, to have the lights be cost efficient and do the job. So
correct. And the revamp of our current lighting, we didn't have any choice. All the LED lighting was put in because that's what the industry offers now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't even see it as being necessarily creative with the description. It's just making sure that the description accurately conveys what the item is. So cost efficient lighting consistent with industry standards. That's
Yep.
And we'll just have to go through and make sure that those descriptions accurately convey what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when this equipment is purchased, like for example, say a new beacon, the city's not purchasing the beacon. We're asking the BOA to do it. And the BOA already says, well, we have beacon vendors, and this is the beacon you're going to get. So does that mean the city can scrutinize it and say, well, we don't want that beacon because it doesn't fall within our sustainability purchasing policy? I don't ever think that. I don't know how to go down that road, but as Brian, I think, articulated it, it's just something maybe we don't have to worry about. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody on that one. Our open discussion on unleaded fuel, updates and standards. And what I just wanted to convey was that the only very news actually came out of EAA on this. There's usually a lot of news, but not this year. I think it's called Lendell Basel. They're back in the game. They were sort of out of it, but now they're back in. And they said that they're going to follow the PAFI process, and that's the process outlined by the FAA for the UL fuel approval process. It's quite different than what GAMI, General Aviation Modification Incorporated, and what's the other company, Rich? The other fuel vendor that does
Vitol?
the UL 94.
Oh,
Swift.
Swift. And Swift also has a fuel in the 100 space. So, and they put on a presentation, and I guess the only thing that really came out of it was right now is all three of these vendors said that they cannot mix any of their fuels with each other. There's no specification that allows it. There's no liability that will protect them. Absolutely nothing. I mean, this is an enormous challenge. So if you're selling GAMI 100 at your airport, okay, and the next airport over is selling Linden Lidl's UL 100 fuel, you cannot refuel at that airport and put it in your airplane and then be compliant to fly your airplane. It's so what they're doing right now is they're just working with high volume flight schools that are willing to test it, literally test it. And these are being done in the latest model of a Cessna 172 SP. And so, and that's all that's really been happening with these fuels. So it doesn't really leave much opportunity for us at this point. Anybody have any thoughts or questions? Okay. Update on that one done. Now for the fun stuff, Brian, financials. Bring that up, please.
so here's what we've got for financials. This is through June. We're still kind of getting the numbers for July put in. So as soon as I have that information, that'll be on the next agenda for you to review. Again, things are pretty standard as it is pretty much every month. The only other kind of caveat to give you just in terms of long-term process, we are starting our 2026 both operating and capital budget process. So likely at our next meeting, we'll have some additional information for you on potential budget for 2026. Last year, we spent a good bit of time kind of carving out the 5-year capital improvement plan. So in many cases, it's just kind of making sure now we look at the next 5 years, incorporating the information from the 4 years out from last year, kind of moving everything forward. So we'll hopefully have more information on that at the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. And the capital, the other, whoops. Bring that up one more time, commission members. Okay, and the item all the way down at the bottom, other operating expenses, 7,733. That is our RPZ. And I see in June, why is it twice?
I'll confirm with the finance department. That might have been just when the checks went out, but I'll check.
Okay, so like a June check went out for July.
Yeah, I'll check.
Okay, thank you. All right. That was really my only question. I had one interested party approach me, very interested in, incorporating a discussion of monthly fuel sales into this portion of our meeting. But we do list the fuel sales in there, and of course, a portion of the fuel sales are the business side of the FBO, and the cost of that is only the business of the FBO. That's their operation. It's not ours, none of our business. And then of course there's the city take. So it's pretty easy to just reverse engineer fuel flowage based on the city take, or I'm sure Rich could provide in a future manager's report, I don't know, monthly fuel flow at the airport or whatever it's worth.
That is correct, David. Just for education, yeah, it's 10 cents a gallon. So you can easily tell how much we ran that month by the financial. Also, Brian gets a breakdown of both, what fuels were sold and how the quantity, as well as a check every month from Maury Airplane Company, actually the city or the non-lapsing fund for the fuel flowage. So it's very easy to add that. I don't
Right.
know.
Well, or in the financials, you just take 10 cents and divide it by the total amount of money that the city's getting, and that's the number of gallons.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or just
So
add a zero. Yeah, works
right.
out.
Add a zero to it. So just for the education of everybody involved, if you really want to know how much fuel it is, just take 10 cents, divide it, and put a zero on there, and your questions have been answered. So that's all I really have for our finances. And like Brian said, it'll be diving into this. It's just budget time. Brian, maybe you'll touch base with Rich if you have some questions, concerns, and yep. Okay. And future agenda items, October, I think we're gonna, if Brian, if obviously if we have a meeting and have agenda, it will be a later start time. And were we thinking 6:40, Charles?
Preferably a different discussion of I think the way to do this under this agenda item, David, is a future agenda item pertaining to the date and time of our prospective October meeting, which falls on Yom Kippur.
Sure. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that if we have a meeting in October, it'll just start later. That's all. And for other future items, I just have my ongoing list that I keep track of. This was a heavy agenda meeting, got everything kind of thrown out there. Staff capacity for bandwidth. I think we're going to be pushing Brian right now. And the other things I have really are not pressing, so I'll hold off on that. And commissioners, if you have anything that you would like discuss at a future meeting, just reach out directly to Brian. Brian will bring it to my attention and we'll figure it out. Any parting closing comments, folks? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for your time tonight. Appreciate that. And we stand adjourned.